I'm so excited to be back. And today I have a very special guest, Yolanda Boyarin, who is a sales and business coach. Where I was on her podcast just a couple weeks ago. And what we discovered there was we do things similarly, but we talk about them in a different way. And what I love about this is how it can land differently when someone else says something that is basically the same thing. But thank you, Yolanda, for being here. I'm so excited because she is another incredible woman that I met through a mastermind that we were both a part of. And you guys know here that I really love collaboration and how we meet our next best friend, our next best client, our next person, collaborating, going to programs, going on retreats. And so I was just celebrating with Yolanda before we hit record that we met in an incredible mastermind, and now we're here collaborating on podcasts, and just goes to show the power of getting yourself in the room. So welcome, Yolanda. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And yeah, like you said, it's amazing how we teach the same thing just in a different verbiage, different way. And I think that's incredible. Even if we taught differently, I think it would be incredible too.
It's so good to agree to disagree. And like, that's what her and I did before we pressed play on her podcast. She's like, so if I completely disagree with you, just know that like that's okay. And I'm so here for that. And yeah, it was really beautiful unfolding. But why don't you start and just share your story? We all have a story. How did you get into sales, business coaching, and being such an incredible podcast host, if I do say so myself?
Oh, well, thank you. Oh my gosh. So it's kind of a long story. So I will try to give the Cliff's notes. But basically, I've been in sales since I was 18. It's something I fumbled into. I used to be one of those people that was like, I hate sales. I would never be able to do that. Because I just didn't want to manipulate people. We all have that stigma of like sales is sleazy, stuff like that. And so I wound up getting into sales and just being really natural at it. And that's what really stuck out to me is like people were always asking me like, how are you doing this? And I was just being a genuine person. And so I wound up realizing that I loved it, got into real estate. Well, actually, I went to school, got my degree in business, majored in marketing, then got into real estate and was there for 10 years, did very, very well in real estate. And I had become a mother at 17. And so when I started making all of this money in real estate, I was like, this is what I want to do is provide for my son, give my family these, incredible vacations and the house and the cars and I kind of lost me during that process because I was just so focused on what could I give my family. And I started getting burnt out. And the thing that really changed for me was my son attempted suicide when he was 14. And it really put things into perspective. I was like, how could I have missed the signs of him feeling this way? Oh, because I was always selling a home. I was always, even when it happened, I was on my way home from showing a property, and my husband was the one who found him. So um, that really changed things for me. And it sent me down this spiral of letting everything go, letting that identity go. Like I really started resenting a lot of the things that I was attached to previously. And it was just like, it was a true awakening during that time. And then I knew I needed to make money. And so I started selling clothing online. And then that led to coaching because people were like, how are you making money online? How are you selling these clothes and making money? And so, yeah, so it just kind of brought, this beautiful unfolding.
Yeah, and I love this story about like you starting in real estate and then the evolution of like how that one thing led to something else that led to something else, and also the awakening that you had in that moment of like what actually matters to you, because so often like those that are starting or wanting to pivot, feel as though like, where do I start? How do I know this is my thing? And you don't. You just follow the pole that you're at and where you're at right now, knowing that every decision you say yes to is leading you to where you're meant to grow into. And there's always going to be something that happens that realigns you to your bigger soul's purpose and mission. And I just like tears to my eyes, like ooh, hit in the chest like that. Like, wow, what happens when, the person that we love the most like is going through such a dark season, and it really opens our eyes to like what is really important to me
Mm.
and how do I prioritize the most important things, because we can get so sidetracked as entrepreneurs. Like there's so many places to put our energy in and so many things that we can be doing. So thank you for sharing, your story in that. And I think you're a great example of how you just get started and then that like I'm successful in real estate, and that like really bled into, I'm sure, your coaching business and sales, because how do I sell? I don't want to be sleazy. And I used to almost throw up on sales calls because it was like overcoming objections, not telling them the price point, putting them into a corner, making them like think that they need me. And that didn't feel good. I
Yeah.
hated sales then. But then I learned from our mentor how to love sales and be transparent in sales. And so I'm curious for you, like being in the real estate industry first and then transitioning into coaching, like what is your take on sales? And was there healing that you had to do in the coaching industry, maybe that you didn't in your real estate company?
So I didn't have any healing to do around sales because by that point I had been in sales for so long that I felt really comfortable with it. But one of the things that I always tell people is that this carried over with me from real estate is my job to be the best salesperson possible is to put my client first, the person that's in front of me, to give you the tools, the information that you need to make the best decision for you, whether that's with me or not. So, when I first started in real estate, I started out in a model home. I wasn't licensed yet. I actually had applied for a different position, and they were like, "We think you're going to be perfect for this salesperson position." And so if somebody walked into that home, I couldn't if they didn't buy my builder's home, I didn't make a sale. I didn't make any money. So I couldn't just take them down the road and sell them another house. So if they didn't buy my house, I wasn't making money. So I had to really ask myself, what is the thing that matters most? Is it that I sell them into this house if it's right or not for them? Or is it that I give them all of the tools, all of the information, and truly educate them on the decision? And whether that's with me or not, whether that's the home that I'm selling or not, like I need them to be 100% sure during this time when everybody's just looking to get them into a home, right? I want them to make the best decision. And that's the same thing that I did with my coaching business is I'm here to educate you. I give you all of the information that you need, and then I leave it up to you to make the best decision for you. And if I'm not the best decision for you, perfect. I don't want to fit a square peg into a round hole. It's not a good fit, and that's okay. But there is going to be somebody else there for me that will be a good fit. So I think for me, it's just always been about transparency, and I always just love changing the way that people view that. Like even yesterday on one of my program calls, somebody said, "How can I increase my sales from this post or from this thing?" And I was like, "How about we change that to how can I serve these people to their highest good and make it about that?"
This is so good because like instead of, I've been saying this the last week, maybe just in your energy field, is like what can I get to what can I give? So rather thinking how can I get this sale, how can I get more clients, it's like how can I give more to my community so that they see the value in this if it's for them at the right time. And so often it's like we want more sales, we want more clients, we want more reach, we want more following, but if we want more impact, changing the conversation to like, how can I give and serve more? Which I think is such a great way for us to release attachment to the now, instant gratification, and come back to like what as entrepreneurs desire to have an impact. And if you think about serving your audience more, that naturally is going to equivalent be more sales. You're muted.
Oh. I was saying 1000%. People can always pick up on your energy. They can pick up on, your true intention. And so I always say it's like, I don't know if you've ever experienced this. I'm sure you have. Um, when you go into like a furniture store and the person rushes you, the salesperson rushes you and they're like, what are you looking for? And you're like, I don't know. Just let me look around. And they're like following you and they're like, well, we have this and we have this and we have this. And it's like, can I just have a minute? Can I just have a minute? And we can pick up on that. It feels like desperation. It feels like you don't really care about what I need. You're just here to make a sale. Versus if you walk in there, and I've had this happen to me where the person's like, "What are you looking for?" And I'm like, "I don't know yet, but when I see it, I'll know it." And then they're like, "Okay, here's my card. The store is really big. So if you find a piece, feel free to give me a call on my cell phone and I'll come meet you wherever you are." And it's like, that's grounded, that's secure, that's confident, right? And we prefer that sort of buying experience versus somebody like, "What do you want? What do you need? What do you want?" Like, we don't want to have somebody breathing down our neck.
Yeah, and I think you made a really good point there about the energy that one feels. Is this needy? Is this desperation? And so, whether it's in a DM, on a sales call, or in any type of conversation, the energy of need is felt, where the energy of like, I'll meet you where you are. I'm here if you want what I have, rather than how can I bend and twist to make you like me, to make you want me, to make you desire me. And I heard this at a business conference I went on last week is like anyone that feels like they're being chased runs. Anyone
Mhm.
feels like they're being ran from chases. So how can we be in such an like unattached energy field of like, I'm here if this is what you desire. I'll meet you where you are, as you mentioned in the store. They're like, call me, I'll come meet you wherever you're at. It's like, how can we meet our clients where they're at, and knowing that that like energetic, like unattached energy is going to bring us like the right fit.
Yes, 1000%. Yes.
What do you think with your clients in this conversation of like unattached and your program call that you had yesterday of like, how can I get more sales out of this? What do you think is like the biggest shift for your clients to go from like desiring more sales to actually making more sales?
Well, okay, so this is gonna go into a little bit of sales psychology. I always say, like, there's a way that we can present our offers that makes people realize the value that's there, right? So it's not just in, do you want what I have and I'm just gonna sit back and you can come to me, but it's, imagine when you're taking a picture of yourself. There are certain angles and certain lighting where you're like, "Oh my gosh, I look so amazing. Yes, I love that picture." And then there are certain pictures where you're like, "Oh, no, the shadows are hitting you the wrong way." You're like, "Oh my god, no, this is not a good angle for me at all." And that's how positioning your offers is. So to me, when you have the know how of, okay, how can I best present this to the right people? How can I show them the value of my work? How can I show them exactly what they're going to get? Because we all have a buying process that our brain is going through when we are making any purchase, no matter what price. And so your brain is really looking at things from a very logical standpoint first. And then we're going into the emotion of, how does this feel for me? Does this feel good? Does this feel exciting? Does it feel expansive? Or is this not a good fit for me? And so when we have that formula of, okay, I know how to present the things that matter to my client the most, my ideal client the most, sales just becomes natural. And it doesn't become a chase, and it doesn't become a, how can I create the best content to this? Like, you already know, you're solid in who you are, you're solid in what you're offering. So to me, it's more about understanding what it is that you're selling. And I think a lot of people, especially the people who are like, how can I make sales now? How can I get the most sales? They're struggling with that because they haven't been taught about marketing and sales, and they've just been told like, yeah, you can just go on and sell happiness and joy and pleasure and alignment. And it's like, but people really need to know what that means and what does it do for them.
Hmm. Yeah, and this sales psychology that you speak of, this business event literally blew my mind in Tampa, Florida last weekend. He was literally sharing like the psychology of sales and what is the value. Like people actually don't care the modules or what you're teaching them or how long it is or how many calls, but like what is the payoff for me to invest in you? And I talk about this a lot, like sell the value, and the value is so much deeper than happiness and a good relationship. Like what does that actually look like when you wake up in the morning and get dressed? What does that actually look like when you open your fridge and you choose food? What does that actually look like when you open up your bank account? Like real life examples. And I do a lot of like, it doesn't have to necessarily be a tangible thing, but something that they can identify with is like, this is where they are now, this is where they desire to be, and your offer gets to be the bridge of that, but how you position it is whether they see value in it. And I know that you do a lot in sales, so what do you think for like low ticket versus high ticket, and how people see the value in high ticket, and those that are afraid to maybe increase their prices? They're like at the edge, they want to increase their prices, but they're like, how can I get them to see the value?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I always say it takes the same amount of energy to promote something for $5,000 as it does something for $5. Now, in the beginning, when you're starting your business, it makes sense to start out with the lower ticket because your brain is looking for evidence that people trust you, that people want to pay you, right? But when we really break that down, is it sustainable unless you have a really large audience of 30K plus followers? Is it really sustainable to keep selling all of those low ticket things? Well, probably not, right? And so it's like, okay, so higher ticket sounds scary, but there's this whole thing called perceived value. And
Hmm.
so if I put 2 bottles of wine in front of you, one that I got from Walgreens for $10 and one that I got from, um, you know, any wine store for $100. If I put those prices in front of you with the wine before you even taste it, you automatically think that the $100 bottle of wine is better. Why? Because of the pricing. So a lot of times people don't understand, oh, my low ticket thing isn't selling because sometimes people think, what's wrong with it? This sounds too good to be true. Like you'll have an easier time, in my opinion, selling a higher ticket because of that perceived value. Now, when it comes to like the buying psychology of things, so the buying process of the brain is first that we go through the visual process. So if we cannot see something, touch something, hold something, which is tangible, it is our job to make it tangible in that person's eyes, right? Then it goes to what's called auditory digital, is now we're having an internal dialogue with ourselves on how we feel about the thing that was just presented to us. And then we go to kinesthetic, which is the emotion, the feeling behind it. And then that equals our result. So even if you are not selling something tangible that can be held, it is your job to create that tangibility in the buyer's mind. So for instance, like I have clients who sell um, sleep packages for getting your baby to sleep through the night. Now, is that something tangible? No, but it's high reward. And so the high reward is, oh my gosh, my baby is going to sleep through the night after I purchase this thing, and you're going to tell me exactly what to do. So, yeah, I think high ticket, low ticket, they both sell, but when it comes down to like sustainability for me, I always feel like higher ticket is the same. It's probably easier to sell.
Yeah, and if you think about like what you said, and I've heard this so much since I've started my entrepreneur journey, and I'm sure many of you that are listening now, it's like it takes the same amount of energy to sell a $33 offer as it does a $3,000 offer. The only difference is like what I talk about a lot, and you just mentioned, is like gathering evidence in yourself, unwavering confidence and belief in your offer, because then you're able to transmute the tangible for them to see the value in it. And selling sleep packages, as you mentioned, it's like, imagine what it would be like to wake up with energy. Imagine what it would be like to sleep throughout the night and wake up excited, rather than like, oh no, I'm so tired. And a mama can relate to that because she's waking up every day like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Give me 3 cups of coffee, please help. It's like, but like when you really get to know your ideal client, and I think that what you just said, it's like when you know who your ideal client is and you know what they value and what it is that they desire, like that really helps you to be unwavering in your ability to sell. And I love how you broke this down in such a psychological way, because it allows us to see the way that we operate and the way that we buy. And something I invite my clients into doing in this experience is like going back to the last few things that you bought, and why did you buy it? How did you feel when you bought it? What was the result of it? And then thinking about that when you're selling to your people, like what experience you love and what you didn't love, and then curating your own soul aligned way and selling.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a good thing because I don't know if you've watched this on Netflix, but it's just a prime example of we as people may find something valuable, but it doesn't necessarily always mean that we're willing to invest in it, right? What we
Mhm.
find value in versus what we're willing to invest in are two different things. So yes, it is our job to create the value, but it's also like, okay, is this something that a consumer is actually willing to pay for? And
Mhm.
so there's this documentary. I'm not big on TikTok. I'm never actually on there, but um, and there's a documentary, I forgot what it's called. I think it's called Bite or something like that on Netflix. And it was this orthodontist in the UK, and he was talking about this thing. His last name is Mew, and so they coined this mewing, and that's the term that they use. And basically, what he was teaching people is something that his dad was teaching people prior to him, was that if you stick your tongue flat at the roof of your mouth and you keep it there throughout the day, it's supposed to help like straighten your teeth. It's supposed to help with your organs, with migraines, with all sorts of things. And he said nobody would pay attention. Nobody would pay attention. And the second that he made it visual, right? I'm going to say that again, visual, which is where he showed people before and after pictures. And people could then see, oh my gosh, their double chin disappeared. Oh my gosh, their jawline got more chiseled from doing this. All of a sudden, it exploded and became a thing on TikTok. And they call it mewing. And it's like this thing that everybody knows about on there. And he said in the documentary, he was like, here I was telling people why it mattered for their health, for their teeth, for to prevent migraines, to prevent all sorts of things. He goes, and I didn't realize that people cared more about their beauty than they did their health.
Mhm.
And so when we are selling, again, we don't want it's about positioning. What is the best way for the consumer to understand what they're going to get out of it, and what is the consumer prioritizing? What are people actually prioritizing? Because health might be one of the benefits, but unfortunately we do live in a society that you know prioritizes certain things over other things.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna link this documentary in the show notes, but I think like what you just demonstrated is like, yes, visual, and how once he shifted what he was selling, the key points that he was selling, people started buying. So if you love what you're selling, it doesn't mean ditch it because you launched it 1, 2, or 3 times. It means what angle? I have goosebumps and chills, Yolanda. This is so good. It's like, what angle are you selling? And when you highlight certain things that you think is important, he thought health was important. But when you highlight beauty, more people bought into it because that's what they care about more. So when you're selling something, be so passionate about it and be willing to shift your marketing and your messaging for different benefits of it, because what you think people want and what they actually desire might blow your mind and then blow up your business. This is so good.
Exactly. That's why I always say, like, sell people what they want, give them what they need. Like, especially, I sold manifestation, money manifestation in the beginning, and I talked about nothing but my spiritual practices and things like that. And it was catchy because people cared about the money, right? They cared about, oh, I want more money. I want to attract this. But what I knew they needed to do was inner work. What I knew they needed to
Mm.
do was work on their confidence. What I knew they needed to do was work on, forgetting about the stories of like what they were told as a kid of like, you're not this enough, you're not that enough, like all of those things. But if I told them that if I say the key to manifesting more money is by healing, people would be like, "Whatever, just give me the ritual. Just give me the thing that I like." We as people, we want the quick fix. We want that thing. So we really have to be willing to say, okay, like you just said, like, I love my work. And if people are going to resonate and receive my work and receive what I want to give them by me talking about it and presenting it in this angle so that they think like, yes, this is exactly what I need, but I'm going to go ahead and give them everything they actually need, then, so be it.
Yeah, and it's how can we get them to buy into what it is that they desire through the angles that we take? And yeah, sometimes we know it's more than that, but they're not going to go down that road unless they think what. So we have to really change what they feel and what they believe about a certain situation. And that comes a lot into sales, right? Like we have to get them to change their belief or their mindset in order to buy in. And that comes through like giving them what it is that they are asking for, but then showing them like what they have to do to get what it is that they're asking for. And sometimes they might not buy into that because they want the quick fix. It's like call Amazon, it'll be here tomorrow, put it on Netflix, like call your food, it'll be there in 15 minutes. But like we know that, being an entrepreneur and having big impact starts with you having impact on yourself. And not everyone's willing to sign up for that until they get the first hit, right? You get the first hit and then you're hooked.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you. I just feel so grateful for this conversation and the angles that you brought in through sales. It's something that I don't bring in a lot on this channel. And I know the audience is probably gonna be like, I want to come and find you. I want to hear more from you. And those of you that are listening, be sure to go and find Yolanda. Let us know, where do you hang out the most and what's the name of your podcast?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me because I just love, the back and forth and the different realizations that we have together of like how we're presenting these things just in different it still just blows my mind, right? So, you can find me on Instagram at Yolanda Boyarin, and then my podcast is Manifest Mad Money, and that's where I'm hanging out at.
Manifest mad money. And I love this conversation that we had around sales and the transformation that we get to sell and the way that we can think about it. And I know I'm going to be taking notes. So those of you that are here listening, go back, listen again, take some notes, and be sure to actually implement. See if you have been selling your offer, your program, your course in the same way. And is there a new angle that you can take? I think that's a really huge piece of like, what are you selling and what do they actually desire? And if you get something super valuable out of this, be sure that you take a screenshot and tag us both on Instagram. Let us know your biggest takeaway, and I'll talk to you on the next episode. Bye, Yolanda.
Bye.